Welcome to the over 1,200 attendees of this live webinar that is brought to you by the Alumni Association of the University of Michigan. I'm your host, Hamilton Chang, a four-year member of the Men's Glee Club, a prior Friar, and a proud alum from 1989, which included a Rose Bowl victory and a national championship in basketball. We have a fun webinar for you that starts with a quick retrospective of the Men's Club over the years and two new virtual pieces from 212 Glee Club alumni from around the world, singing from their living rooms, dens, studies, and a few, I think, who went outside to get away from their children. The first is Franz Biebel's Ave Maria, a wonderfully prayerful piece, appropriate for COVID-19 type of times, and also for the unrest going on today. We will have a reflection from numerous Glee Club alum, say notable. They will end their reflections, and then we will also end the video with our alma mater, the yellow and blue. We'd like to thank filmmaker Brian Gaukel for producing the video that you're about to see. Once we come back from the video, we'll have a live Q&A with three former and current directors of the Men's Glee Club. And take a moment right now and ask you guys to click on the chat button feature, if you would, and do us a favor and just check in and tell us where you're from. Tell us where you're watching. Tell us where you're sitting. Once you've done that, feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy the things that make our university great: tradition, camaraderie, and in the case of the Men's Glee Club, musical excellence. Hi, I am Hamilton Chang, the president of the Men's Glee Club in 1989. We're excited that you are joining us today for this world premiere event. Originally formed in 1859, the Men's Glee Club is the oldest continuously student-run organization in the history of the University of Michigan. Over the years, the club has represented the university across the nation and, in fact, the world. Traveling via horse and buggy, steam locomotives, and then jet planes, the Men of Michigan have engaged alumni and fans of music across the globe longer than any other group on campus. For over 160 years, the club has survived and continued to flourish through 2 world wars, a depression, and several pandemics. Through all of this, what has remained constant is the significant impact that the Glee Club has had on its members' experiences in college and beyond. The title of this program, Tradition, Camaraderie, and Musical Excellence, are the anchoring principles of the Glee Club. The tradition of singing Michigan songs means that I'm able to share an experience with an alumnus from the 1950s or last year. The camaraderie developed through common goals and concert tours endure a lifetime. And the musical excellence, driven by our world-class directors over the years, has resulted in critical acclaim, world championships, and appearances on national television. The new performances you are about to hear of Franz Biebel's Ave Maria and our alma mater, the yellow and blue, exemplify these fundamental beliefs, as do the reflections you will hear from some notable alums of the Glee Club. Music has served to create community and shared experiences since the dawn of humanity. Today, perhaps more than ever, we feel our need to come together and create moments that transcend the reality of our day-to-day and lift us to a place of unity and communal creation. Our time together today is meant to be a gathering of our community, one of Glee Clubbers, of Michigan alums, and anyone who loves music and music making. Founded in the wilderness in 1817, in excellence and strength it grew, nourished by a dream. The University of Michigan, the people set me free to teach, to serve, to probe the unknown. Our university.
Being from the state of Michigan, I have had the honor of singing in Hill Auditorium over a dozen times. It is a special place and it has hosted the Spring University of Michigan Men's Glee Club concert without fail for over a century until this spring. On April 4th, 2020, the hall sat empty, and this silence did not go unnoticed. A nostalgic social media post on the Glee Club Alumni Facebook page sparked an avalanche of responses and led to the creation of the largest virtual men's chorus populated by Glee Club alumni and members. In a testament to the value of this organization, an opportunity to gather and make music again with people that share a love for the club and all that it represents, has brought together over 200 men from all over the globe. What an honor to be able to be a part of such a storied tradition at such a meaningful time.
Et verbum caro factum est, et habitavit in nobis.
Hello, this is Carl Grapentine. I was in the club a little more than 50 years ago, which seems hard to believe, but I've had the good pleasure and privilege of being associated with Michigan all the time since, being the voice of the Michigan Marching Band and the voice of Michigan Stadium. But it's when I look back to my Glee Club years, those undergrad years, that I get this overwhelming bit of nostalgia, memories of great times, great music, and great people who are still friends today.
You know, being a Glee Club alum was only the second best thing in my life, other than being in the club for 4 years singing beautiful songs in four-part harmony with great guys in Dr. Dewey. But coming back many times over the past 66 years for the spring concert and the thrill to join in the finale with the current club and old club alums, as well as stepping out with our old quartet, the Novelaires, for a tune or two, well, it just doesn't get any better.
To this day, some of my very best friends are guys that I sang with, especially in the Friars, and the Glee Club as well, but the Friars there are 7 of us remaining of the 8 who sang together, and we're all very close, and we get together for reunions once.
And the beauty of this organization is its ability to grow and develop and prosper as an entity.
I imagine for all of us, our time in the Glee Club were some of the most memorable experiences we had in our lives. We were so young, we were so impressionable, we were so ready to see the world. I doubt any of us could have known it at the time, but being a part of the Glee Club, being part of something that brought us together as young men, and having that thing be singing was pretty special. It was pretty transformative. We are all probably very different people today because of those experiences back then. I still remember Hamilton Chang and Jim Brumberg and Baron Brandel encouraging me to try out, even though I was pretty certain I couldn't sing. They just believed in me. And when you're 17 or 18 years old, it means a lot to have the faith of your friends and your peers. And so I thank all of you for being so welcoming to me and being so welcoming to each other. I also think there's another reason that many of us may not be able to remember what we had for lunch yesterday, but we can still remember 1989, the Asia tour. And I'm not just talking about Drew's escapades and hijinks. Most of us probably remember really amazing details of that trip. The venues in which we sang, the people we were so honored and lucky to meet, the planes, the trains, the automobiles, the skinny ties, and the Foster Grant sunglasses. I think it has to do with music and how music changes our experiences, making them more powerful, more indelible, and yes, more memorable.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark Stover, and I'm the current director of the University of Michigan Men's Glee Club. I've been asked, what does it mean to me to be the director of the Glee Club? And that is such a question that is impossible to summarize in brief, but I'm going to do my best. It is such a privilege. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. It is such a privilege to be a part of the rich tradition of male chorus singing, and to get to be a part of one of the great leadership bodies of choral singing in the world of choral music. The opportunity to get to be in the lives of over 100 students here at the University of Michigan, ranging from undergraduates just starting their journey to grad students or doctoral students who are deep into their academic studies. The common bond we all share is a passion for music and a passion for the community that we get to build around that music and around working hard together and committing to something that is so much bigger than we ever possibly could on our own. I love the opportunity to get to see the students grow as leaders and grow as musicians and grow in their brotherhood and in their relationship to each other. These are friendships that they make that last for their entire lives. And it's incredible to see this network of alumni, 2,500 strong, all over the world, that are still deeply bonded to their Glee Club experience and the Glee Club members that they shared their time at the university with, that continue to walk with them throughout every nook and cranny of their life. It's a beautiful thing. the Glee Club is working hard to weather the long storm of this pandemic so that when the moment comes that we get the green light to resume activity as normal, we will be ready to emerge as strong as ever. And I see the guys, and I'm inspired so much by these incredible students whose commitment to one another in light of canceled concerts, canceled tour to South America, all of these things that have just been vanished from their hopes and dreams as a participant in the Glee Club has not daunted their spirit, has not diminished their passion for song, has not in any way lessened the love that they have for one another and for this great, great tradition that is to be a member of the University of Michigan Men's Glee Club.
How many times have you witnessed something that's caused the hair on the back of your neck to stand up? I think a situation like this is normally reserved for a wedding day or the birth of a child or seeing something that had quite an impact on you. It happened to me in 1985 when I auditioned for the University of Michigan Men's Glee Club. On the day of my audition, you go into the Michigan Union, find your way to the Kunzel room, walk in, a lot of uncomfortable wooden chairs that everyone's sitting on. There are many, many young men there for their audition. And the members of the Glee Club come in, and this is just a normal looking group of guys. They haven't seen each other in about 4 months, so a lot of high fives, bear hugs. And then silently, the director comes in, doesn't even make a sound, simply clears his throat and silence. He then has a pitch pipe with him. He blows on the pitch pipe, and they immediately go into the famous song, Laudasatque Carmina. And this is a song that has opened every Michigan Glee Club concert for over a century. The club finishes, and needless to say, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I was just stunned and had two immediate feelings. There's no way I'm qualified to be in a group like this, but it was overcome by, there's no way they can keep me out of this group. And the director then explains to us the song, where it comes from, that it was written by Charles Gailey, who graduated from the university in 1878. He also wrote The Yellow and the Blue, our alma mater. And it brings to note, or brings the idea comes to mind, that our most transformative president at the University of Michigan, the third president, James B. Angel, is known for saying that the university provides an uncommon education for the common person. And there's quite a few parallels with the Glee Club, because if you look at this group of guys, it is a normal group, like a group of people, 100 men that you'd pick out off the street or any gathering. But when you hear them sing, it is an uncommon sound. And it is really something that when the Glee Club was formed in 1859, and still to this day, it is a student-run organization. And like I said, it's a common group, but given uncommon direction, really provides an uncommon sound.
What started out a few weeks ago as an opportunity for us to gather and to share song has blossomed into a resurgence of our community. Through the process of recording these pieces of music, we've reconnected with old friends and made new ones. We have shared pictures, stories, joy, and pain. We want to say thank you to our wonderful alumni, Matt Glenn and Rob Bizel, for the fine audio mastering, Brian Gawkel for the amazing video work and spirit, our brothers in song for participating, and of course, all of you for joining us today. It's our tradition at the end of each concert, anywhere and everywhere around the world, to invite Glee Club alum to join us on stage for the singing of our alma mater. Today, we invite all of you to join us in this tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, the Yellow and Blue.
Sing to the colors that float in the light, hurrah for the yellow and night, and go Blue!
Afternoon and welcome. Or maybe I could say good evening and welcome. Or for that matter, maybe it's even good morning and welcome, because people are listening to this broadcast literally all over the world. We're so thankful for that. I'm Carl Grapentine, the voice of Michigan Stadium, but a proud alumnus of the Michigan Men's Glee Club. I'm used to talking to big groups of people, 112,000 of my closest friends, but I don't know if I've ever had this experience of talking to people literally around the world all at the same time. In just a moment, I'll have the distinct pleasure of introducing three distinguished and three beloved gentlemen, and then later moderating a discussion with Dr. Jerry Blackstone, Dr. Mark Stover, and Dr. Eugene Rogers. But before we ask them some questions, I want to remind all of you, the attendees of this webinar, that we're counting on you to submit your questions as well. This is the interactive part of this. So to answer, or rather to ask your question, go to the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. When you ask a question, be sure to tell us who your question is directed to, and then also tell us where you're from. With over 1,000 attendees in this webinar, we won't get to all of the questions, so be quick. First of all, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jerry Blackstone. He was the conductor of the Men's Glee Club from 1988 until 2002, a long tenure. He led the group on tours of Australia, Eastern and Central Europe, Asia, South America, and indeed all over the United States. So, Jerry, a question for someone with such a long tenure. What changed and what has remained the same during your tenure with the Men's Glee Club and then your continued association with Michigan?
Well, thank you, Carl. And this whole event so far has been so touching. And you all sounded beautiful, gentlemen. I was proud of you, proud to be associated with you. I would say some changes that happened during those years certainly would be a couple of things that we started, the Male Vocal Arts Day, on the prompting of a student inviting high school fellows to come in and sing with us. That's still going on, and that was a wonderful, wonderful event to start. I gave a lecture at one point for Michigan music directors, short lecture on the distinctives of the Men's Glee Club. And so I said, well, I think the distinctives are tradition, camaraderie, and musical excellence. And little did I know that that would stick, that we would still be talking about that today. And I still believe that those are hallmarks of this wonderful organization. I'm grateful to Carl Smith for the leadership that he provided as a faculty advisor. That was something that remained for a long constant during my time. And I would say of all the things that remained the same, that continue to remain the same, would be the dedication of each of those members to the group, to each other, to the university. It's quite remarkable. The student ownership, the student leadership, I'll always remember, I'll always cherish. They are the voice of the University of Michigan.
Thank you, Jerry. We have a second question, and that goes to the current director of the Men's Glee Club. You heard from him earlier, Professor Mark Stover. Mark is a leading conductor and pedagogue in the U.S. and abroad. He joined the School of Music, Theater, and Dance faculty in 2018 as Assistant Professor of Music, Conducting, and Associate Director of Choirs, and, of course, Director of the Glee Club. Welcome, Mark. Your question: could you give us some insight into how the current Glee Club had to respond to the challenges suddenly presented by the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, thank you, Carl, and thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. It's such a privilege to be with you. I spoke to this a little bit, and you heard my voice on this in the film that Brian Gockel so beautifully created for us. And I think, as you can imagine, 107 guys in the Glee Club, we are literally just ready to peak in our semester of our work together, and all of a sudden it's gone. It's all gone. We had performances lined up all over Michigan and down in Ohio. Of course, our Spring Hill concert was upcoming. And then this whole term was to be culminated by a 3-week tour to South America, the first time returning to South America with the Glee Club since '96 when Jerry Blackstone took them. And we were as excited as could be for what was to come. And then it just vanished. And to summarize the sense of grief and loss that we just had to be honest about. We were devastated. We were absolutely devastated. And I think it's because of, for these guys, the Glee Club is not just a choir. It's a family. It is a core part of the Michigan experience for each one of them. And to suddenly have that regular rhythm of life as a member of the Glee Club taken away, I think it was of course a shock, and we can all relate to that because that happened. It was disruptive in every one of our lives. But what was so inspiring to me was that instead of just kind of hanging our heads, immediately set by a beautiful tone from our current president, Jacob Emery, and everybody across the Glee Club, there was a resolve, there was the commitment to one another, and just such a strength. I found it to be so inspiring. I was moved to tears multiple times watching these guys lift each other up and commit to doing our work together virtually as much as we could, and singing virtual music and meeting, having virtual cottage inn nights, and even having a banquet at the end of the year that was just profound, listening to guys share what it means, what it means to be a member of the Glee Club. And you never have a more opportune time to reflect on that when the thing you love so much is taken away. And so now, we are already dreaming about when we can take that South America tour again. We are looking forward to weathering the storm however we need to, as far as what we will be allowed to do in this side of vaccination and all of that. And with our creativity and our collective efforts and the leadership of these guys, I know that it's going to still be a very positive experience for everyone. And like I said in the video, we're going to be ready to pounce on that opportunity when we get the green light to do so. And we already can't wait.
Thank you, Mark. You mentioned virtual cottage inn nights. So how do you consume pizza and beer virtually? That's fine. Doesn't sound very satisfying to me.
You can heat up a pizza in the oven. Maybe you find it at a convenience store for $1.99. It's a lot cheaper.
I guess that's true. Okay, thank you. Our next question goes to Dr. Eugene Rogers. He is the Director of Choral Activities at the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, conducts the chamber choir, and up until 2 years ago was the conductor of the Men's Glee Club. Gene, during your tenure as conductor of the club, I know that you and the club premiered a very powerful book. It was called The 7 Last Words of the Unarmed by Joel Thompson. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share with us how you feel this special work supported those 3 pillars that Jerry talked about: tradition, camaraderie, and musical excellence. Gene?
Good evening. Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Brian, for such a fantastic video in Hamilton and your work. It's an honor to be here with all of you. And it's, as we can imagine, this time is truly a tough time for our country. I never in a million years really imagined that this work would resonate with so many, and for some even be a source of comfort during this time of great pain and trauma in our country right now. You know, the sheer fact that this group of young men, of mostly non-African American young men, would be so open to go on this journey with Joel Thompson and me says so much about the sense of camaraderie that you've heard both of my colleagues talk about within the group. Their commitment and trust in each other, as well as their commitment and trust in me and the musical team. That just speaks so strongly about that. And prior to the 7 Last Words of the Unarmed, the Glee Club had performed several social justice pieces under my direction. And not to mention that my predecessor, Dr. Paul Raridan, 2 years before I arrived, started a diversity outreach program called Brothers in Song. So for the group with whom I was fortunate enough to work, a commitment to diversity and inclusion was a huge part of their tradition. And thankfully, it continues to be under the leadership of Professor Stover. Lastly, you know, the musical excellence came through learning all those notes and that hard work and their commitment. And that piece had quite a few musical challenges, but I was proud of those young men for really being committed to that. And we had the honor of performing it for their peers at IMC that year. And the documentary, we were able to garner an Emmy Award for their best performance. And so, you know, that work, again, started off just as something that I wanted to share with them and focus on loss. And it has really become really still a sense of connection and comfort for the music community, not just with those clubbers, but many in the choral community in the United States. And so thank you for asking, Carl.
Thank you. Do you know, is that piece available online somewhere? Is there a YouTube video of the club?
Yep, YouTube video of the club performing it with the Sphinx Symphony, and Michigan Creative just also released the educational resources that has the documentary as well.
Okay, it's called The 7 Last Words of the Unarmed by Joel Thompson. Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.
Next question goes back to current director Mark Stover. This comes from Jack Baker, who was in the club in the 70s. He says, the 2019 fall concert focused on the challenges and stigmas of mental health in our society. Could you comment on what led to the commissioning of this work and how this relates to your mission as an educator?
Oh, thanks for the question, Jack. And, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about that. You know, as for so many people, as Eugene was just referencing, the experience of singing the 7 last words of the unarmed was a transformative experience for the clubbers who were a part of that era, and I think also was part of our way of, in many ways, of finding a step towards expanding the ways in which we use our music as a way to serve and to share and to provoke and to find ways to connect to the human experience. And so, you know, for me, the mental health journey that we all are engaged in as just part of being human is something that is so profoundly experienced, especially during those college days. And I was literally standing in line with Joe Negan, a member of the Glee Club, as we were on winter tour back in the January of 2019. And we were on our way to Traverse City, and we're standing in line at a McDonald's. And Joe was just sharing a little bit about his journey with mental health. And it was powerful to me. And it reminded me, like, these guys are all wrestling with so many different things right now. And his vulnerability and his willingness to share inspired me in such a moving way to say, you know what if we sing into this story and see what we can do as an ensemble to share what this part of the human experience is. And so we while I was on the bus continuing on that tour, a tweet came up that I saw a friend of mine post that simply said, "You are enough. You are so enough. It's unbelievable how enough you are." And that, combined with Joe's vulnerability and storytelling, to me, was what planted the seed to bring this to the Glee Club back in the fall of 2019. We commissioned a work called "You Are Enough," a mental health suite. And Aaron Accurso, who is a conductor on Broadway, he conducts Aladdin currently on Broadway in New York. He was the composer for the work, and we created an extended set of music around mental health advocacy that spoke to the mental health journey in a lot of different ways. And it became, for us, a really profound encounter with the subject. And I'll highlight one experience that kind of stood out back in the fall. We were on our retreat, and this was very early in the year, and I had the Glee Club working real hard, and it's a beautiful environment at the YMCA store camps, and we're cranking away learning this new music, and then I said, we need to stop, and I said, I'm going to ask you to do something that may be really uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask you to have an open mind to this. And I said, put your music down, put your phones away, and I'm going to invite every one of you to go right now and take a walk in silence and come back to me in 20 minutes. And, they were looking at me a little suspect initially, but then eventually I could see they were willing to embrace this idea. And I just asked them to go and reflect on what your mental health journey has been. And so they did it, and they honored that request of total silence for 20 minutes. They took a walk, they came back, and we kind of walked into the room, and I could just feel this sense of weight in a good way. And I broke them into small groups and just said, hey, talk about process. What did you just experience? What was that like? And about 45 minutes later, I couldn't stop them. They were just, and it was just this moment of realizing, this is where we get to be, talk about tradition, camaraderie, and musical excellence. We get to use the music as a tool to share meaningful and profound things. We get to use our camaraderie as a way to support each other in the college journey, and then well beyond, as our alumni can attest, throughout life. And we get to lean on our tradition that is the grounding of who we are as the Glee Club, that gives us the permission to be bold, and gives us the permission to take on challenging topics through our music and serve the world through song. So that's where that came from.
Thank you, Mark. That's wonderful. We have a question which is actually directed to all three of you. So let's start with Jerry Blackstone. This comes from Aaron Werbell. He says, I'm curious what it was like for all of you in your first month with the club, stepping into the leadership role of a club with such a tradition and a long history, and then how did you eventually make it yours? Jerry?
I had chatted with Pat Gardner, former conductor of the Glee Club, just before I started with, and he said, Jerry, tradition is what you did last year. They'll say, oh, we always did it that way. He said, but that's just because they did it that way last year. That was pretty freeing. So as long as I felt we didn't throw everything out there, there were possibilities for change and figuring out what would work with this group of fellows. I'd never conducted a men's chorus before. I'd sung in a men's chorus, but I'd never conducted. So the feelings of how is this going to go and how is it going to sound and all of those sort of things, we were all living in that together, and a transition from one conductor to another is always a time of wonder. I'll say that gently. And so we did. And, the second year was a different beginning. It became, we are faithful to ourselves, to who we are, and we're faithful to the people in front of us.
I remember my first night of rehearsal, my sophomore year. It felt so good to know all the Michigan songs, and everything was so much easier.
You really learned the Michigan songs. That's fantastic.
Okay, same question. Let's go to Eugene. Eugene Rogers. What was it like to come in that first time and everybody knows the Michigan songs except you?
Well, awesome. I thought I knew a little bit more because my first year as a master's student, I was secretary for the Glee Club.
Oh, okay.
And then my second year as a master's student, I was assistant for Jerry Blackstone. So you fast forward, I thought, oh yeah, this is exciting. I know those guys, but what Jerry just alluded to, it changes with every conductor. So the club that I was assistant conductor for was not the club that I inherited. And that was a wonderful adjustment, not to mention that we were headed to China that year. So no pressure. You know, you walk in the door, you're going to China, whether you like it or not. But, you know, that process of becoming a unit under your tenure just comes through a lot of travels and memories together that happened with those men in the room. And so that just happened with time. And I'm so honored to have had that experience.
Okay, great. And Mark?
Well, I really have so much gratitude for my predecessor, who was Eugene, because he really set me up to be successful in every which way imaginable. And I had a spectacular president in Alex Wilf, who also just was so steady and the right guy for the right time to help me on board and make this transition. And, you know, one of the things that I felt so profoundly by the guys was that they just said, okay, you're ours now, let's go. There was no prove it. There was none of that. It was just, here we go. Let's keep going, man. And I was very moved by that. But I think, as both Eugene and Jerry referenced, I felt the permission to be me. I didn't have to be someone who's done it before. I felt like I could what they need is Mark Stover to be Mark Stover. And that's why I'm here for the time that I'm here. And so I always remember the first sound that they made together. And when my hands went down and that sound came out, and you go, that is special. That is so special. It just sent a chill down my spine. So.
Thank you. You mentioned student leadership. That is something that struck me all through my freshman year, how the club really was run by this remarkable group of gentlemen, some of whom are still my friends today. They were so impressive to me. They were to me what a Michigan man should be. We probably have time for just one more question. This one is directed to Mark Stover, the current director. And Kelvin Lau asks this question. He says, how does the Men's Glee Club continue to bring choral music to the next generations, especially the divide between classical pieces and current audiences?
Well, you know, one of the great opportunities that we have as the Glee Club to be a leadership ensemble in the world of choral music is to commission new works. And we have been doing that over the years very consistently. And all of my predecessors have done that. And we feel like it's part of our commitment to the tenor-based choral repertoire. And so we're always looking for ways to innovate with new repertoire, and yet honor the great chestnuts of the repertoire. You know, I mean, you hear Ave Maria conducted by Jerry in the Glee Club singing, and you never want to lose that, and that needs to be around for years and years and years. And there's so much that comes out of the tradition that needs to be continually explored and cultivated. But I also think that we have an opportunity to expand the form. And even with this commission that we did last fall with You Are Enough, the mental health suite, it had more of a pop music theater sensibility to it. It was very accessible in that way to folks, not necessarily your traditional sound for what you might expect in a classical choral concert. So I do think that the way that we kind of can broaden the sound and the repertoire by using creativity and really relying on the broad talents of the Glee Clubbers and the guys in the room and what they're passionate about. I think that's part of my role too, is to pay attention to that and to seek music that they're going to really connect to. And I think both of my colleagues here in Jerry and Eugene did an outstanding job of cultivating the repertoire broadly as well when they were on the podium.
Thank you, Mark. I think we may be toward the end of our questions here. Hearing the Biebl again tonight, the Franz Biebl. Now, this is a memory that I imagine a goodly portion of you listening around the world to this program might share with me, and that was our 150th anniversary concert 10 years ago. For those who don't know the Biebl, it's scored for a small group and a large group. And a group as small as Chanticleer will do it with 3 guys on one part and 9 on the other. Well, for that 150th anniversary concert, the small group was the 100 voices of the current men's club way up in the second balcony of Hill Auditorium. And then the large group was, what was it? I think 400 of us, of the alums on the main stage at Hill. It was just the most amazing sound I've ever been in the middle of ever. I think we're to the end of our questions, so I want to thank Mark Stover and also Eugene Rogers and also Jerry Blackstone for being part of this tonight. It's been great fun, and I hope wherever you are, and I've been seeing the names flit by on the bottom of my screen here from Europe, from all over the United States. They go by too quickly to read them all, but thank you all for tuning in, and hope you enjoyed the program. Laudes atque Carmina.
That's fantastic, Carl. Thank you. I appreciate you being the moderator for the Q&A this evening. In case you all don't know, Carl has been, I think, a cornerstone in the musical scene here in Chicago for at least the entire 30 years that I've been here, and I've appreciated his friendship and even more tonight to help us moderate this last session. To Dr. Blackstone, Jerry, you were fantastic. Dr. Blackstone's first year was actually my last year. When he walked into an executive committee who looked at him and said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to Asia for 3 weeks." And he smiled and said, basically, okay. I'm not sure if that smile was indicative of fear or excitement, but it was fantastic. Mark Stover, I think the last night of your Midwest tour last year was in Chicago, and he was kind enough to have dinner with me. And then when we sort of finished dinner, I said, "Hey, where can I take you? Where are you going?" And he looked at me. He's like, "Well, I'm actually going to the final dinner for the Glee Club to close out the tour." So he had a first dinner with me and a second dinner with the entire club here in Chicago. And Dr. Rogers, what you've done with the club, what you did with the club is fantastic. And the piece, if people go and look at it, look it up online. It's actually in the comment in the chat section. You should look it up. It's a very, very powerful piece that he was talking about. So appreciate all of you, panelists and MC, moderating tonight. You guys were fantastic. I want to thank again the Alumni Association for bringing us all together tonight to celebrate the tradition, camaraderie, and the musical excellence of the Men's Glee Club. The final piece for tonight, we hope you'll enjoy, is the 2019-2020 Glee Club's performance from last fall at Hill Auditorium. They're going to sing The Varsity and The Victors.
Michigan unto victory, every man and every play. Michigan expects her varsity to win today. Rah, 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 win for Michigan. Varsity down the field, never yield, raise high or shield. March on to victory for Michigan. And amazing varsity, we're for you, here for you, to cheer for you. We have no fear for you, oh varsity. Varsity down the field, never yield, raise high or shield. March on to victory for Michigan. And amazing varsity, we're for you, here for you, to cheer for you. We have no fear for you, oh varsity. Now for cheer they are here triumphant, here they come with banners flying, in stalwarts and their nine, with shouts of victory crying. with strength denying, with shouts of victory crying.